The iron gates of Blackwood Penitentiary didn't just swing open. They seemed to exhale a heavy metallic sigh that had been trapped inside the stone walls for decades. Emma Train stepped through the threshold, the heel of her worn leather boot catching slightly on the cracked asphalt. She adjusted the collar of her faded denim jacket against a cool breeze that carried the scent of wet pine and distant city fumes, a smell she hadn't realized she missed until it hit her throat. 4 years of concrete, stale bread, and the low, oppressive hum of fluorescence. In the eyes of the public, she was the cold-blooded gold digger who had seduced and murdered her wealthy husband, Julian Vance, in a bid to inherit his sprawling estate. The tabloids had devoured her, painting her as a black widow in silk. But the truth was far colder and far more transactional. Julian had been a mark, and Emma had merely been an instrument. She had taken a payment from a shadow, an anonymous broker whose voice she had only ever heard through an encrypted burner phone, to ensure Julian's sudden, quiet demise. She had done the deed, taken the heat, and served her time without breathing a single name. But freedom hadn't come through good behavior or a brilliant appeal. It had come in the form of a heavily sealed envelope delivered to her cell 3 nights ago, signed by Judge Martin Bars. Bars was a man whose reputation as an incorruptible pillar of the law was built on a foundation of buried skeletons and offshore accounts. He had pulled the necessary strings, erased key evidence from the state archives, and signed her release order with the stroke of a silver fountain pen. The price was silence, and the condition was absolute. Leave the state, disappear, and never, under any circumstances, complicate his life again. If she stepped out of line, the judge would ensure she ended up in a hole so deep light would never reach her again. Emma walked past the perimeter fence, her small canvas duffel bag slung over one shoulder. She didn't look back. Her mind was fixed on a single fragile desire: to find a quiet town, rent a small apartment with a porch, and learn what it felt like to sleep without waiting for footsteps in the corridor. She wanted a normal life, a blank slate where the name Emma Train meant nothing to anyone. She walked until her legs burned, eventually reaching the edge of Maplewood Park, a quiet green expanse situated on the outskirts of the neighboring county. The afternoon sun filtered through the dense canopy of oak trees, casting soft golden patches across the grass. Emma found a secluded wooden bench near a dormant stone fountain, sat down, and closed her eyes. For the first time in 4 years, the air was warm, and no one was watching her, or so she thought. You know, you look a lot less intimidating in person than you do in the news clippings. Emma's eyes snapped open. Her right hand reflexively twitched toward her waist, searching for a blade that was no longer there. Sitting on the far end of the bench was a young man. He couldn't have been older than 28, dressed in a slightly oversized vintage suede jacket with an acoustic guitar case propped up between his knees. He had messy brown hair, earnest eyes, and a wide, unpracticed smile that lacked even a trace of malice. "You shouldn't sneak up on people," Emma said, her voice gravelly from disuse. "Especially people who just got out of where I just came from." "Fair point," the young man said, extending a hand covered in small, calloused guitar finger marks.
It was a perfect
William.
day. We just walked and talked and the time just flew by.
And I didn't sneak up. I've actually been sitting here for 10 minutes trying to work up the courage to say hi. I'm a fan. Emma stared at his outstretched hand, then up at his face. A fan? of a convicted murderer. Of a survivor, William corrected gently, pulling his hand back without a hint of offense. I read everything about your trial. I know what the papers said, but I also know how the media twists things. There was always something missing in that story. You had this look in your eyes in every courtroom photo, like you were playing a part you hated just to stay alive. Emma narrowed her eyes, studying him closely. He didn't carry himself like a cop, a private investigator, or a hitman. He lacked the hardened posture, the watchful eye, the cold edge. He looked like an idealist, an artist completely detached from the dirt of the world she inhabited. You shouldn't believe everything you think you understand, kid, Emma murmured, turning her gaze back toward the trees. Move along. I'm not good company. I'm pitching a musical, William blurted out, leaning forward with sudden manic energy. A cinematic indie film. It's about redemption, about people who have been dragged through the mud trying to find a reason to sing again. I'm playing the lead, but I need someone real to help me shape the rhythm. Someone who knows what actual pain feels like, not just theater school drama. He unclasped his guitar case, revealing a dark mahogany acoustic instrument that smelled of wood polish and old rosin. I can teach you how to play, William offered, looking directly into her eyes. Free of charge. You give me your perspective on the dialogue. Make sure I don't sound like a privileged idiot, and I'll teach you 6 chords that can turn any bad day into something tolerable. What do you say? Emma looked at the mahogany guitar, then at William's hopeful face. It was absurd. It was completely ridiculous. She was a woman hunted by her past, bound by a corrupt judge's ultimatum, and standing on the precipice of an uncertain future. Yet, looking at this naive 28-year-old dreamer, a small, forgotten spark of curiosity flickered inside her. I don't sing, Emma said flatly. Nobody's asking you to sing, William smiled. Just hold the neck and press down on the frets. What Emma didn't know as she reached out to touch the wooden neck of the guitar was that 2 miles away in a high-rise office building overlooking the river, a man named Bob Rhymes was hanging up a secure phone line. Bob was a tall, smooth-talking talent scout with a sharp suit and a sharper eye for leverage. He was the man who had funded William's dream project, positioning himself as a benevolent mentor to the young musician. But Bob didn't care about movies, music, or art. Bob was a mole, an operative on the payroll of Harry Wilde. Harry Wilde was the Shadow. He was the unknown criminal client who had paid Emma to eliminate her husband 4 years ago, and he was the owner of Wilde Security, a massive private military outfit that operated as a front for international smuggling, extortion, and targeted assassinations. Harry never left loose ends. He had used Judge Bars to release Emma not out of mercy, but to use her as bait to draw out a rival whose presence threatened his entire empire. That rival was Oswald Hammers, an old-school criminal kingpin who controlled the city's docks and illegal armaments trade. Oswald and Harry had been locked in a bloody turf war for 3 years, a feud that was fast drawing the attention of federal authorities. Both men needed a resolution, but neither trusted the other enough to sit at a table without a knife behind their back. In a dimly lit warehouse along the harbor, Oswald Hammers leaned against a shipping container, smoking a thick cigar. Across from him stood Harry Wilde, flanked by 4 heavily armed operatives wearing tactical gear with the Wilde Security Incanal emblem stamped on their chests. "You're getting sloppy, Harry," Oswald grunted, exhaling a cloud of blue smoke. Releasing the train girl. She knows what your voice sounds like. She knows the layout of Vance's house. If the feds grab her, she talks and we both burn. Emma Train won't talk, Harry replied smoothly, adjusting his silk tie. His eyes were cold, devoid of any human warmth. She's being monitored every second, and besides, she serves a higher purpose. The judge thinks he's running the show because he signed her release papers, but Bars is weak. He's afraid of his own shadow. Oswald spat on the concrete floor. I don't care about your judge or your pet assassin. The federal task force is closing in on the eastern shipping routes. We need a truce, Harry, a pragmatic pact. We pool our logistics, clear out the joint task force, and split the downtown district 50-50. Harry smiled, a terrifyingly empty gesture. A pact. I like the sound of that, Oswald. Cooperation has always been my strong suit. Harry extended his hand. Oswald looked at it, paused, and then shook it with a heavy, calloused grip. The deal was struck, a temporary alliance forged in fear and greed. Meanwhile, in a quiet loft on the west side of town, Emma was practicing a simple C major chord. Her fingertips were sore, red, and swollen, but for the first time in years, her mind wasn't running through escape routes or tactical entry points. William sat across from her, humming a melded melody while strumming his own guitar, encouraging her with every small success. See, William said, nodding approvingly. You're a natural. You have a steady hand. I've always had a steady hand, Emma said quietly, her voice carrying a weight that made William pause his humming. You're thinking about him, aren't you? William asked softly. Your ex-husband? Emma looked down at the wooden body of the guitar. I don't think about Julian. I think about the choices that brought me to him. I was young, broke, and desperate. I thought playing the game meant taking the shortcut. I didn't realize the shortcut leads straight off a cliff. Before William could respond, the loft door clicked open. A woman stepped inside carrying a brown paper bag full of groceries. She had sharp, observant eyes, dark hair tied back in a messy bun, and a small scar running along her jawline. It was Claire. Claire was Emma's childhood friend. Years ago, she had worked alongside Emma in the underbelly of the city, operating as a getaway driver and thief. An anti-villain who stole from the wrong people for the right reasons. But after Emma's arrest, Claire had managed to pull herself out of the gutter, going straight and opening a small auto repair shop down the street. She had taken William in as a boarder, helping him finance his music while keeping an eye out for any sign of Emma's eventual return. Claire set the groceries on the counter and looked at Emma, her expression a mix of relief and intense worry. You shouldn't be here, Em, Claire said, walking over and crossing her arms. The streets aren't safe. Word on the waterfront is that Harry Wilde and Oswald Hammers just shook hands. Emma set the guitar down slowly. The fragile sense of peace in the room evaporated instantly. Harry Wilde? How do you know that name? Because I still have friends in the docks, Claire replied, her voice dropping to a whisper. Harry isn't just a contractor, Emma. He's the head of Wilde Security, Inc. He's been buying up judge dockets, police reports, and city councilmen for 5 years. Judge Bars isn't the guy who freed you. Bars is just Harry's errand boy in a black robe. William looked back and forth between the two women, his brow furrowed in confusion. Wait. Bob told me Harry Wilde was an investor. He said Wilde Security was providing the funding for our movie location shoots. Emma turned to William.
I had to do it. I was cornered. You have to believe me.
Bob? Bob Rhymes? Yeah, William said, his voice trembling slightly as the realization hit him. He set up the whole audition process. He was the one who told me to go to Maplewood Park today. He said I'd find inspiration there. Emma stood up, her instincts taking over. She grabbed William by the jacket collar, pulling him close. Bob set you up. You were the bait to pull me out into the open, to keep me anchored in one place so Harry could monitor me. I didn't know, William stuttered, his eyes wide with fear and confusion. I swear, Emma, I just thought he was a talent scout. He's not a scout, Claire said grimly, pulling a concealed 9mm pistol from beneath her jacket and checking the magazine. He's a cleanup. Suddenly, the glass windows of the loft shattered inward. Heavy tactical smoke canisters bounced across the hardwood floor, releasing thick, choking white clouds. Get down, Emma yelled, tackling William to the floor, just as a hail of suppressed automatic gunfire tore through the plaster walls. Claire dropped behind the kitchen island, returning fire with precise, calculated shots. Rear exit, now! Emma dragged William by his jacket toward the fire escape door at the back of the apartment. William, stick to me. Don't look back. They burst through the heavy metal door into the cold night air, descending the iron staircase as boots thundered up the interior stairs behind them. Below, in the alleyway, a sleek black SUV sat idling, its headlights cutting through the darkness. Standing beside the driver's door was Bob Rhymes, holding
Look who
a
decided to make an
pistol,
appearance.
a dark smile playing on his lips. Going somewhere, Miss Train, Bob called out, raising his weapon. Mr. Wilde sends his regards. He appreciates you playing your part, but your scenes have been cut. Before Bob could fire, a heavy iron wrench slammed into the side of his head, knocking him to the cold pavement. Claire emerged from the shadow of a dumpster, her breath coming in rapid gasps. Get in the car, Claire screamed, jumping into the driver's seat of an old, reinforced sedan parked nearby. Emma shoved William into the back seat, dived into the front passenger side, and slammed the door just as bullets began peppering the trunk. The car into reverse, slammed on the gas, and out the narrow alley, leaving the smoke and gunfire behind. Inside the getaway car, the silence was deafening, save for William's terrified breathing. What is happening? William choked out, pressing his hands against his face. Who are those people? Why are they trying to kill us? Because I trusted the wrong man 4 years ago, Emma said, her voice dripping with ice as she looked out the side window. And because they think I'm still the same girl who takes orders. Meanwhile, in an abandoned shipyard office overlooking the harbor, the pragmatic pact between Harry Wilde and Oswald Hammers was reaching its natural conclusion. The two criminal leaders stood around a large oak table covered in blueprints for the city's shipping channels. Oswald was leaning forward, mapping out routes with his finger. We move the shipment at midnight, Oswald said, looking up at Harry. My men secure the perimeter. Your boys handle the port authority. It's clean, it's profitable, and the task force won't suspect a thing. Harry looked down at the map, then reached into his tailored suit jacket. It is a clean world, but there's a small problem. What problem? You don't like sharing, Harry said softly. Before Oswald could draw his weapon, Harry pulled a chrome revolver from his jacket and fired 3 shots directly into Oswald's chest. The heavy kingpin collapsed onto the oak table, knocking over the blueprints before slumping to the floor, dead. Harry calmly reloaded his revolver, turning to his head of security. Clean this up. Notify the police that Oswald Hammers was killed in a gang dispute. And tell Judge Bars to meet me at the old courthouse. We need to finalize our arrangements. In a private chamber at the municipal courthouse, Judge Martin Bars sat behind his massive mahogany desk, his hands shaking as he poured himself a glass of expensive scotch. The television on the wall was playing breaking news coverage of the dockside shooting of Oswald Hammers. Bars was a man consumed by terror. He had spent 30 years building his image as a ruthless, fair-minded magistrate, but his addiction to high-stakes gambling and secret debts had forced him into Harry Wilde's pocket. He had released Emma Train, thinking it was just another routine favor to keep Harry happy, but now he realized the terrifying scale of the fire he had helped kindle. Harry was systematically eliminating every rival, every loose end, and every witness. The door to the judge's private office burst open. Judge Bars jumped, spilling his scotch across his paperwork as Emma Train stepped into the room, followed by Claire and a deeply shaken William. "Emma!" Bars gasped, his face turning pale as a sheet. "What are you doing here? You were ordered to leave the city if Harry's men find you." "Harry's men already found me, Martin," Emma said coldly, stepping up to the desk and leaning over it, her hands planted firm on the polished wood. "They tried to kill me. They tried to kill my friend, and they dragged an innocent kid into their butcher shop. I didn't know," Bars stammered, his bravado crumbling completely. "Harry told me you were being released to settle an old debt. He said it was business. I didn't know he was going to execute Oswald. I didn't know he was planning to take over the entire district." "You're a judge, Martin," Claire said, her voice laced with disgust as she stepped forward. "You swore an oath to protect the law, not sell it off to the highest bidder with a private army." Judge Bars buried his face in his hands, tears of genuine remorse breaking through his composure. The weight of his corruption, the lives ruined by his hand, and the horror of what Wild Security Inc. had become finally hit him with full, crushing weight. "I was wrong," Bars sobbed, looking up at Emma with hollow, broken eyes. "I thought I could control him. I thought if I gave him what he wanted, he'd leave me alone. But he's a monster, Emma. He's converting Wild Security into a full-scale cartel, and he's using my signatures to cover every murder." "Then help us stop him," William spoke up, stepping forward from the shadows. His face was pale, but his voice was unexpectedly firm. "You're the judge. You have the access. You have the power to revoke his security licenses, to expose his private network to the federal prosecutors." Bars looked at the young man, then at Emma. "If I do that, I go to prison for the rest of my life. My name, my family's legacy, everything is destroyed." "Your legacy is already blood," Emma said, her tone softening just enough to let her words penetrate his panic. "But you can choose how the story ends, Martin. You can die a coward in Harry's pocket, or you can give us the evidence we need to bring him down." Judge Barr sat in silence for a long moment. He looked at the silver fountain pen sitting on his desk, the instrument he had used to sign away so many lives. Slowly, he opened his bottom desk drawer, pulled out an encrypted flash drive, and pushed it across the blotter toward Emma. "It's everything," Barr said, his voice trembling. "Bank accounts, contract hit orders, payroll logs for Wild Security. It's enough to lock Harry away forever, and me right along with him." "Thank you, Martin," Emma said, taking the drive. "Now get out of the city before Harry realizes you gave it to me." "No," Bars said, standing up with a newfound tragic dignity. I'm staying right here. When the federal agents arrive, I'll hand myself over. It's time I paid my own bill. Emma nodded respectfully to the broken judge. They turned to leave, but before they reached the heavy oak doors, the hallway outside echoed with the sound of approaching boots. Heavy, tactical, and disciplined. They're here, Claire warned, raising her handgun. There's an old service tunnel under the basement, Barr said quickly, pointing to a door hidden behind a tapestry. It leads out to the old subway tracks beneath 4th Street. Go! Emma, Claire, and William sprinted through the secret doorway, just as the main office doors were blown off their hinges by explosive charges. The subterranean tunnels beneath the city were dark, damp, and freezing. The sound of water dripping echoed off the rusted steel beams, mingled with the distant shouts of Harry's mercenaries pursuing them down the damp concrete paths. We can't outrun them forever, Claire said, her breath fogging in the chill air as they stopped near a decommissioned subway platform. They have night vision, body armor, and automatic weapons. We don't need to outrun them, Emma said, turning to look at William. William, do you still have that recording gear from your music setup? William reached into his coat pocket, pulling out a small, high-definition digital audio recorder he used for capturing song ideas. I always carry it. Good, Emma said, her eyes flashing with determination. Claire, take William and the flash drive to the Federal Building downtown. Give it directly to the special agent in charge. I'm going to draw Harry out. Emma, no, William protested, grabbing her arm. He'll kill you. You said you wanted a normal life, a chance to start over. You can't just throw yourself away. Emma looked down at William's hand on her arm, then up into his wide, honest eyes. For the first time, a gentle, genuine smile touched her lips. I am starting over, William, Emma said softly. A normal life isn't something that's given to you. It's something you have to clear the ground for. You taught me how to press down on the frets. Now let me finish the song. She pulled away, turned on her heel, and ran back into the shadows of the main tunnel, deliberately firing a shot into the air to draw the search team's attention. Emma, William called out, but Claire caught him by the shoulder, hauling him back toward the exit ladder. She knows what she's doing, kid, Claire said grimly. We have a job to do. Move. Deep within the central subway junction, Harry Wilde walked calmly down the abandoned tracks, holding a heavy tactical shotgun. 4 of his top Wild security mercenaries fanned out behind him, their weapon lights cutting through the darkness. Emma, Harry's voice echoed off the curved tiled walls. You really should have taken the judge's offer and left town. You were free, Emma. All you had to do was disappear. From the shadows above a disused signal box, Emma's voice rang out, detached and calm. I tried to disappear, Harry, but you kept holding the leash. You couldn't let me go because you were afraid I'd eventually remember who really gave the order to kill Julian Vance. Harry stopped, gesturing for his men to hold their positions. He chuckled, a low, dry sound. Julian was a weak man sitting on $50 million of black market assets. He deserved to die. You were just the knife I used to cut his throat, and now the knife gets thrown away. Come and throw it away yourself, Harry, Emma called out from the dark. Harry gestured to 2 of his men, who moved cautiously toward the signal box with their rifles raised. Suddenly, Emma dropped from the ceiling rafters directly onto the first mercenary, driving him to the ground and disarming him in a single fluid motion. Before the second guard could react, she fired 2 quick shots into his tactical vest, dropping him, then rolled behind a heavy concrete pillar as Harry unleashed a hail of shotgun fire that pulverized the stone edges. "You're fast, Emma," Harry shouted, stepping forward, racking another shell into his shotgun. "But you're out of ammunition and out of options." Emma pressed her back against the pillar, checking her stolen weapon. The magazine was empty. She locked the slide back, holding her breath as she heard Harry's heavy boots crunching over the broken gravel toward her. "It's over," Harry said, stepping around the corner of the pillar, aiming the shotgun directly at her head. Emma looked up into the barrel of the gun, her face completely unreadable. "It is over, Harry. Listen." From above them, echoing down through the ventilation shafts, came the faint, rising wail of dozens of police sirens. Harry's eyes narrowed. "What did you do?" "I didn't do anything," Emma said calmly. "Claire and William just reached the federal building. Judge Bars is currently giving his full confession to the United States Attorney, and every word you said in this tunnel for the last 10 minutes was broadcast live over an open radio frequency." Harry pulled a radio from his tactical vest. The tiny transmitter Emma had taken from the first mercenary was clipped directly to his collar, glowing with an active signal light. "You bitch!" Harry snarled, his finger tightening on the trigger. Before he could pull it, a deafening shot echoed through the tunnel. Harry gasped, dropping the shotgun as a bullet struck his shoulder, knocking him backward onto the tracks. Claire stood at the end of the platform, her weapon raised, flanked by a squad of heavily armed federal SWAT officers whose tactical lights blinded the remaining mercenaries. "Drop your weapons! Hands on your heads!" the tactical team leader roared, swooping in to disarm Harry's remaining men. Harry lay on the gravel, bleeding, clutching his shoulder as federal agents pinned him to the ground and slapped heavy steel cuffs onto his wrists. He glared up at Emma with pure, unadulterated hatred. "You ruined everything," Harry spat, blood flecking his lips. "You had a free pass." Emma stood over him, looking down with neither anger nor triumph, only a quiet, profound sense of relief. "I didn't want a free pass, Harry," Emma said softly. "I wanted a real life." 6 months later, the sun was shining brightly over a small, open-air amphitheater on the coast. The trial of Wild Security, Inc. had been the biggest news story of the year. Judge Martin Bars had pleaded guilty to corruption charges, taking full responsibility for his role in facilitating Harry Wild's criminal empire, earning a reduced sentence in a minimum security facility, where he spent his days writing memoirs advocating for judicial reform. Harry Wild was serving multiple life terms without the possibility of parole. Emma Train sat in the middle row of the amphitheater, wearing a simple white linen dress. Her hair was down, blowing softly in the sea breeze, her face pale no longer, warmed by months of living under an open sky. On the stage below, William Windle stood under the spotlight, adjusting his mahogany acoustic guitar. The venue was packed with audience members attending the premiere performance of his indie musical, a story of loss, survival, and the quiet beauty of second chances. William looked out across the crowd, his eyes finding Emma in the middle row. He smiled, picked up a microphone, and spoke into it. "Before we start," William said, his voice echoing warmly through the speaker system, "I want to dedicate this performance to a friend who taught me that even when a song starts in the dark, you can always choose how it ends." The crowd applauded softly. William struck a rich, vibrant C major chord, the notes floating up into the clear afternoon air. Emma closed her eyes, leaned back against the wooden seat, and took a deep, clear breath, listening to the music carry her into a life that was finally entirely her own.